Louise, if you want to take it.
Thanks, Rachel. You did a really good job telling us all the announcements and everything. And for this week, week 6, we have ReFuel Technologies for our speaker. And today we have Justin Redmond, and he's a part of the 4 co-founders of the ReFuel Technologies with Vivian, Louise, and Preet. And they're all UCSC alumni, which is pretty cool. And the company, soon to be company, I hope so, is a synthetic biology company set to revolutionize not just fuels, but the recycling and textile industries as well. They have worked with local tech accelerators to build their network and continue pioneering sustainable chemicals and fuels. And he should let us know everything else. Also, fun fact, Justin was in our spring series last year, and that's pretty cool. So welcome, Justin.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for having us. I believe our other co-founders are here, Luis and Vivian. You could go ahead and say hi too.
Hi, how's it going? My name is Luis. It's a pleasure to meet all of y'all, and I'm glad to see other banana slugs on Zoom.
Hi, everybody. I am also another banana slug, and it's so nice to see everybody, and I hope you guys enjoy our presentation.
Yeah, so like Louise already said, yeah, we're all like UCSC alums. I was in the class last year, and yeah, I was reached out to by the lovely facilitators to talk about what we've been doing. And we're really excited to talk about it because we believe it very much relates to some of the themes that we understand you all are talking about in this class, and also much more broadly, just like environmental activism outside of the class in lots of different, I guess, like real world settings, if you will. So without further ado, let me go ahead and try to begin the presentation. All right, share screen. Am I able to share my screen?
Yes,
I just made you. Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Okay, let's see. All right, everyone see my screen? Awesome, cool. So yeah, we're ReFuel Technologies, and we're all about making today's environmental problems into solutions, particularly in the realms of chemicals and energy. So yeah, we'll get right into about who we are, how we got to where we're at. This is the agenda for today. And after we talk about a little bit about us, we're going to be talking about the problems we're trying to tackle, our plan to tackle those problems, and some concepts that we think that this class and also the larger public should be aware of as it relates to our mission. Oh, and also before we get started, here's some concepts for today that we might be throwing around. So I think I may have mentioned this, and maybe the facilitators mentioned this too, but we're a biotech company. And yeah, we actually are officially a company. We've been incorporated since last year. But some words that we're going to be using that are very relevant to us in our process are these 6 concepts here. So one of the main things that we use is produces butanol, and then also we have ethanol and TPA, and also a very crucial aspect to what we use as part of our process is PET. So you may have seen like on your little plastic bottles, like the little triangular recycle symbol with a 1 in it. That's a PET plastic bottle. And not just plastic bottles are made out of PET. There are tons and tons of other different things that are made out of PET plastic. There's things like carpet, other types of packaging, medical sutures. The list really just goes on and on and on for the myriad of different things that are are made out of PET plastic. And also E. coli, that's a type of bacteria that we actually use to break down PET. And that's a really interesting topic that we can get into a little bit later if we have time. And we also use those E. coli with those bacteria with a method known as CRISPR. By, I guess, show of hands, I don't know if you can do hands, but like by show of hands, have anyone ever heard of CRISPR in the class? Yes, you.
You can do it by like the show of chat, you know, where you're like, okay, cool. Oh, we got one yes, one no, a bunch of yeses. Cool. And
Awesome. Yeah, so
basically for those who haven't do not know what CRISPR is, CRISPR is just a scientific process that ReFuel will use when it comes to editing the bacteria. So if we're going to create like butanol as one of our products, if we have plastic introduce E. coli or the bacteria, we will use CRISPR to modify that gene to essentially give us a product such as butanol, ethanol, or TPA.
exactly. Yeah. Quick little science lesson. So just getting that out of the way. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat or ask them in the Q&A. Yeah. So just a little bit about us. So I'm the CEO. We're all 4 co-founders of ReFuel Technologies. I'm currently a genome engineer at a company called Synthego, in addition to being CEO at ReFuel. And I graduated this past summer, 2020 in MCD. Preet, she couldn't be here today because she's sick, but she's the CSO. She spearheads a lot of the science. She's a first generation college student, and she graduated this past winter with BME in 2021. And then Luis and Vivian, you can introduce yourselves too.
Yeah, I can be next. So again, hi, hello everyone. My name is Luis. Originally, I was a chemistry major at UC Santa Cruz. However, I did most of my research in biochemistry and neuroscience, where I focused on Alzheimer's and dementia and Parkinson's disease research. Now I currently work at a biotech company where I'm designing COVID diagnostic tools. And then for ReFuel, I help with a lot of like the experiments, the marketing, social media, and with some of the website development.
Hi, everybody. My name is Vivian, and I am a 2021 graduate. So I graduated last year. My major was in biochemistry and molecular biology, and my research focused on protein kinetics and thermodynamic research. So basically biophysics. I am the CFO, but I will also be working on the proteins and the bacteria and enzymes that are involved in our company and help develop the technology.
Yeah. So yeah, we all met at UCSC, obviously, but we were all like part of a program called STEM Diversity Programs, and that's just like a program that brings in people from like underrepresented backgrounds who are interested in science. And that's how we all met. I think we met like back in 2018. Yeah, I think it was 2018. Yeah, so we've kind of always had ideas around how we could affect the world around us with our backgrounds, right? Like I'm sure like a lot of us at UCSC have that same mindset, whether it's like science or like social justice or like politics or economics or whatever background you may have. I'm pretty sure a lot of us have that same mindset. We want to use the tools that we are honing and actually use it to affect the world around us. And you know that's what we decided to do back in 2018 when we were coming up with this idea. And the idea was that being that you know a lot of us are first generation students and all of us are from like low income or like underserved communities, we thought, what are some issues that affect those communities the most? And we came across the problem of pollution, which is very hard to miss. Pollution takes various forms, and we were looking at ways we could solve that. And we did lots of research. We did research on, I guess, different types of like proteins, different types of bacteria that could reduce pollution, right? And we stumbled upon a method that is able to break down PET plastic, like the same type of plastic that is in your water bottles and your packaging, that you see, littering gutters, littering landfills, and sometimes even making its way into the ocean. We found a way to break down that type of plastic and turn it into reusable chemicals and fuels. And that's where we got started. And we've been working on that ever since. Since we've gotten started, we've been involved in a number of programs. We've been involved with programs affiliated with UCSC. So if anyone here, whatever your background is, if you have any type of interest in like affecting change through entrepreneurship, Blackstone Launchpad is a great program. NSF I-Corps is a great program. All these programs on the left here were affiliated with UCSC, and it's free to apply to any of these programs and get involved with perhaps like-minded individuals like yourself to find an initiative that you'd actually like to tackle. And some of our partners are on the right, so that's who we've been working with in the past 2 years. One of the biggest partners that we've, thanks for the link, by the way. One of the partners that we've been working with since the beginning was Ocean Plastics Recovery Project, and this is an NRO, I believe it's called. They're not really a nonprofit, but they're like a research organization, and they operate out of the Bay Area and the Pacific Northwest, and they take expeditions into the Pacific Ocean, sailing all the way up through like Alaska and in other areas, salvaging ocean plastics, and they reel in like tons and tons of plastic per haul. And we've partnered with them because we want to get a good pulse on the type of waste that is ending up in our oceans, and B, we also see that as a very key feedstock that we can use in our process. So if we can take a good chunk of the plastic that is in the oceans and divert it to our process, that's just us doing our part. And we've also partnered with other biotech companies like Visualis, Bioselection, who are also in the same space as us. And again, we're just one company trying to do our part and trying to affect change in the best way that we know how. All right, so our mission. Vivian, you want to talk a little bit about our mission?
So our mission is very simple. Simply put, we are trying to improve our community as well as the environment. And if we can do that in one go, that would be the best outcome. So to read what we wrote, the first thing is environmental solidarity. So we are looking to take our scientific discovery and the development of our discoveries and our technologies to contribute to a sustainable future. And that is basically the source of our existence of our company, right? We all four of us, our researchers in BICOR, we aim to basically help the world, as cliche as it is. And we intend to aggressively push back against environmental catastrophes. And what environmental catastrophes could that be? As Justin said earlier, that would be pollution via plastic, or burning of fossil fuels, or of mining fossil fuels. And so what we are going to do is we are going to engineer new systems that will recycle and upcycle the waste that accumulates in our environment. And then as well as recycle and upcycle, we are going to try and see if companies will take our biofuel. So we are going to implement sustainable practices and make sure that we are taking away more waste than we are making waste. And with our company, we intend to almost create no waste. And then next is community development, and that is the second part of our mission. So I think Justin touched upon this earlier a little bit. Being from minority backgrounds, we first-handedly have seen what plastic pollution does to communities, does to environments and economies. And so that is one part of community development, is we aim to improve our environment, community. And so while many other organizations strive for equal opportunity, we desire not only equal opportunity, but advancement. So to simply put, we are going to first help those that are most affected by plastic pollution. And an example of this is poor people in China. We have been sending them our waste. And so being from Chinese descent and Vietnamese descent, I have been over there to third world countries, and I've seen the conditions that these people live in because they're living in our trash. So that's just a real world example of community development.
Yeah.
And yes, that is our mission.
Yes, and also to touch a little bit on being from communities that are disproportionately affected. I actually remember last year, one of the speakers was talking about how communities in the Bay Area are disproportionately affected by like air pollution, and that air pollution specifically comes from like refineries, railroads, and there's tons of refineries and logistics operations related to refineries and oil in the Bay Area alone. It's one of the most polluted areas in California when it comes to that specific type of pollution coming from crude oil. So yeah, definitely that's why we wanted to focus on this aspect, because again, it affects us like every day, like literally as we speak. Yeah, and then so some of the problems we face, it's kind of already touched on, but yeah, it's kind of like a two-pronged approach. So we initially, looked at plastic waste as a problem, and plastic waste, it's easy to look at as a problem because it is it's so visible, right? Everyone sees like the plastic bottles, like on the beaches, like and like everyone sees the plastic bottles, like polluting gutters and stuff like that. But there's also tons of other ways that plastic gets into our environment and our ecosystem in ways that are not as visible. And that happens in the ways that we list here, whether it's like landfills contaminating groundwater, whether it's burning plastic. A large amount of countries actually incinerate their plastic waste as well as their other waste. I believe we had a metric somewhere, Luis, if you could look at that, but we have like a huge problem when it comes to incinerating and landfilling our plastic waste, and it's getting to be a problem. And also we're looking at the other approach of fossil fuels, right? So where plastic is also a problem, in the same vein, so are fossil fuels, and that's like the use of fossil fuels as like for energy, the use of fossil fuels for making different types of products, and also the logistics that come when we're trying to obtain those fossil fuels, right? When we're talking about oil spills, when we're talking about fracking, when we're talking about all these processes that are inherently harmful in a lot of different ways to the communities that they inhabit. So, and I think now would be a good time. I see lots of people putting comments about their experiences, which is great.
Yeah, and it's going back on Justin's point. Even though like here in America alone, we're producing a pound of plastic per day, globally, 17.78 pounds of PET bottles are used per person globally. With just like an 18 to 20 ounce like water bottle, it just weighs 1 pound. Just to give you like a reference, like that's insane. And there's more ways plastics are being used and like being sent to our landfills and waterways, which is like it's kind of gross that like it just penetrates our food chain, and sometimes like it ends up in our fisheries and our ecosystems, and that's why there's other interactives that like Justin was mentioning, right, Justin?
Yeah, I was wondering if now would be a good time, facilitators, to do like a small breakout room if we could. Is that possible?
Yeah, we could organize breakout rooms, or if you wanted to ask the whole class, we could have people raise their hand and answer. Totally up to what you prefer.
Okay, well, yeah, let's do breakout, and then like I was gonna have like a question posed to the class a little bit later in the presentation, if that's cool.
Yeah, how many people do you want per breakout room? I don't mind organizing them.
Yeah, we can do like 5. How many people we have in the class? Five people maybe per breakout room. And pretty much the question that I wanted to pose to you all is just, I wanted to get a feel for you being the people that we're like are in our communities, and being like a sample size, right, of the people that are in our communities. What is it that you feel is most affected by fossil fuels and plastic waste in your immediate environment? And what are some ideas that you had about that? I can put that in writing. So yeah,
While
if
we
you
get
just
those,
take 5 minutes.
sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, go for it.
While we get those rooms set up, do you mind sending that prompt in the chat?
Yeah, sure. Cool. But yeah, so you just take 5 minutes just to kind of think about that. And I just want to get a feel for what everyone's thoughts and like feelings are on this topic. Yeah, because like these problems again, kind of circling back to environmental solidarity, like it's not really like an outside problem, right? Like these problems are not like detached from us. Like these are all parts of our communities that we live in and take part in like day after day. And sometimes they're really visible and sometimes they're not. But yeah, I just want to get a pulse for like what is the most visible to you.
Thanks, Justin. We're just trying to figure out how to do breakout rooms. We have a little trouble trying to figure out who the host is right now. So thank you for your patience.
Yeah, sure.
Hey.
Nice. That was cool. Yeah. Just wait for people to trickle back in. Cool. Let me know when I'm good to go.
I think when we have 68 participants, I think we should be good. As they like,
Okay, cool.
I think I saw a number like between 68 or 70.
Okay.
Yeah, they've got 13 more seconds before it kicks them out. Okay, you should be all good now.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
All right.
I can segue into this conversation. Let's see. Is it like a little clicker that you have like on the rest of the material that we have? Yeah. So some of the solutions that we've like want to create here for ReFuel is we want to turn that waste product into something that's readily available, such as like a fuel source. This fuel source can be in like engines, such as like your car. We want to put this butanol that we're creating in your car, and like it can provide better fuel source than fossil fuels. Or we can put this in like back into raw plastic materials. So even though that bottle that you was created from different like chemicals, we can be able to recycle that back into it and be able to like not only provide energy source for your car or different things, but if we can recycle it, it'd be amazing. Some of the benefits to this, it doesn't require much energy since it's bacteria creating this process, and butanol can be again used in engines, which like we have ethanol, and we also have other chemicals such as TPA, which we'll go more into detail later.
Yeah, and also keep in mind that one of our one of the main things that we're producing can be used as a fuel source, but can also be used for chemicals in lots of other different applications, and that's actually where we're going to be targeting our business model first, but that's for later. So this is our process generally, right? The conventional process, we have factories, refineries that take crude oil and produce plastic. Pretty much all of your plastic products are produced via fossil fuels, and those same refineries that take the same materials also produce your standard fuels, chemical additives, and lots of other day-to-day products that go into things that everyone uses, like toothpaste or other types of plastic, even beauty products, pharmaceuticals. All these chemicals, a large portion of the time, are actually derived from crude oil. And so where we come in is where we're actually using a synthetic biology process to divert the plastic waste that already exists and has been produced by these refineries and companies that are invested into that type of industry. So we're diverting the plastic from going into landfills and polluting our waterways, and diverting some of that feedstock that would otherwise go to produce like other fossil fuel derived products. And instead, we're producing our own versions of these products that are inherently more sustainable and have reduced emissions when you compare it to the baseline. So like Luis already mentioned, we can use our products to make energy, fuels. We can make chemicals and textiles. Like a good chance is like, you know, the shirt that you're wearing or the jacket that you're wearing, the waterproofing on it, it was made from fossil fuels. The paint on your walls, you know, it was derived from fossil fuels. The coating that goes onto your car or your appliances, those are all made from fossil fuels, usually by some form of fracking and cracking in an industrial setting. We're proposing that we can divert those same resources that would otherwise be used to make, otherwise be used in much less efficient processes, and then make our own versions. And we mentioned E. coli and CRISPR before, and that's a part of our process. So we're taking these tiny bacteria and we're genetically modifying them so that they can eat the PET plastic and break it down into these chemicals that we're talking about. And we also want to highlight that there's tons of other energy sources out there, right? I'm sure many people know about like hydroelectric, wind, and solar. And these are very good alternatives to the fossil fuel scheme that exists, right? And you know, we fully endorse using these types of energy sources to power our homes, to power our cars, etc. But again, what we're trying to focus on is the plastic waste that already exists, because it's not going away. Like the plastic that exists in landfills, it can stay there for upwards of like 700 years in some cases. And you know, it's just sitting there, and landfills are going into our waterways or otherwise filtering into our ecosystem, and it's causing actual human health hazards. And that's why we're focusing on that. Luis, you want to talk a little bit about this, our products?
I would want Vivian to discuss this. That way she can also do new discovery interview that we had the other day.
Yeah, so I can do the slide. So basically, these are the 4 main chemicals that we're going to deal with in our company. So the first one is butanol. Butanol is our end product. So butanol is used for so many things, like Justin said. It's used for fuel, it's used for paint coatings, plasticizers, and adhesives. So that means the paint on your walls, right? And also the coating on your waterproof North Face jacket, the coating on your Patagonia jacket. And so the next product is also TPA. It's terephthalic acid, which is consumed primarily to produce these polyester glycols, which are just polyester. Your clothing, your swimsuits. I know neoprene is also a part of this family. And then PET is another chemical that we are going, so PET is the plastic chemical that we are going to start with, right? And we can also make more PET plastic as a product. And then lastly, we'll also be making ethanol. And ethanol is a very, very common chemical. Ethanol is in your alcohol. It's in disinfectants, it's in personal care. And so this is a very widely used chemical that we can sell readily to consumers. But the one chemical that I want to emphasize is butanol. So for butanol, we are planning to sell this biobutanol to companies that are aiming to go more green, go more sustainable. So for example, I have had an interview with Patagonia. I talked to one of their sales associates, and they were very, very excited to hear about what we had to say about biobutanol, which is basically we will be selling them butanol that was upcycled from waste, plastic waste, that would otherwise be just accumulating in the environment. And so butanol, Patagonia would use this chemical as a waterproof coating on their jacket. And this is not only a benefit for us, it's also a benefit for them, because then they can now market their clothing as sustainable, as eco-friendly, as from waste, right? Because in the past, they probably could not use this label on their clothing because they technically are not sustainable and sourcing their materials from waste. And so we plan to use this advantage for a lot of textile companies, because I mean, the trend nowadays is to be green, right? We are running out of time. I'm sure you guys have all seen the clock in New York. We are 7 years left before we run out of fossil fuels that can be naturally mined. And so this is very important for us, is the selling point where we will tell them that they no longer need to buy newly mined butanol. Sorry, that was a whole rant, but as you can tell, we feel very strongly about the selling point, and especially to niche pharmacies as well.
Yeah, there's lots of different applications for these products. And let me see, so I'm going to skip past this in the interest of time. I'll just lightly go over it. It's just talking about our business model and like how we're actually planning to navigate, being a sustainable company in like a corporate startup environment. But I wanted to talk a little bit about greenwashing. Does anyone know what this is, or is anyone familiar with this term by like response in the chat, I guess? Yeah, so you all have heard of it. Cool. Yeah, pretty good response. Okay, yeah. So most people have heard of it. So yeah, like companies like Coca-Cola, like Nestle, DuPont, like Eastman Chemical, for instance. All of these are like very big, well-known companies in their respective industries, and they have had some bad raps in the past as far as like their like sustainability and their like environmental policies. And in order to correct this, a lot of these companies, what they'll do is they'll take new methods, maybe even methods like ours, and try to apply them in ways that will, in effect, like help their bottom line and make them look more green, but in actuality, they're not more sustainable, or they're not significantly more sustainable. Like Coca-Cola, for instance, is using 20% recycled plastic according to their website for their plastic bottles. But again, circling back to our mission, when we're talking about environmental solidarity, and we're trying to implement sustainable practices, just using one concept as a poster child to say, hey, we're green, but also looking at every single step and like saying, okay, how can we make this better? How can we implement sustainability like all throughout our supply chain? And that's what we're trying to implementing green sustainable practices throughout their supply chain. A lot of companies, it's really hard for them to do that. Their entire organization to actually be sustainable. Like, for a lot of companies like Coca-Cola, it just doesn't make economic sense for them to do that. But at the same time, we really want transparency. We really want people to be aware of how this is used. And we really want people to know that, again, I think I mentioned in one of the breakout rooms that like, it's gonna take a lot of individual and group efforts to actually build a sustainable community and build like a sustainable future. And that goes from grassroots individuals such as yourselves, community orgs, government, and also industry. It's going to take people, individuals and groups at every level to actually cause a change. And we're not saying that with our process that we're magically going to solve the world's environmental problems, because that's not true. That's simply not going to happen. But what we are saying is that we are one small piece of the puzzle that's going to move the needle forward. It's going to like fight back against some of the environmental catastrophes that we mentioned earlier. And yeah, we're always looking for new opportunities to collaborate. Like I said, we currently work with Ocean Plastic Recovery Project. We work with the USDA. We've also worked with other biotech companies that are in the similar space. And we're also looking at partnerships with other people, other companies, I should say, in other countries that have a focus on environmentally conscious policies. So these are some of the things that we're taking into account as we navigate this space, right? Like we're all like young, freshly graduated entrepreneurs that were like literally in the same spot that you are now, like a year ago, some even less than a year ago. And we're trying to navigate this space, being in a corporate, capitalist space, and trying to affect change that we want to see. And it's a learning process. It's definitely has not been easy, but this is something that we've decided to take on, and this is the lessons that we're learning along the way. And so this is just some of like our more long range goals and how we want to implement our, I guess, anti-greenwashing and actually giving back to the community. We started in 2019 and we're developing now, and we plan to implement our technology at a more wide scale, presence, like as the years go by, and continue to hold workshops like this, be involved with other community organizations. That's what ReFuel is all about at its core. And this is just like kind of like elaborating on where we see ourselves in the future. If you have any questions on that, we can talk about that later. I know we're running a little bit low on time, but yeah, we definitely see ourselves expanding in the future. And we really want to meet the needs of underserved populations, not just regionally, but also globally. And to do that, we have plans in the works to modularize our system so that we're able to do so.
Cool. I can go over some of the goals that we have. So some of the goals that like ReFuel has, just to end it all, of course, is to reduce the carbon footprint that we leave in this world. But in doing so, we want to provide like a sustainable chemical product, because like we want everyone to continue to go forward with like renewable energy. In doing so, we also plan to increase diversity within our own company. So as we continue to grow, we want to give other scientists from different backgrounds an opportunity to like develop their own skills and harness their passion for environmental sustainability. And by doing so, they'll help us with spreading awareness on how important it is to have plastic bottles change into a renewable energy source, whether that renewable energy source will go on your shirt, whether that will be on your vehicles or any other products that we've mentioned before. And then once we become like developed, we want to like change our communities. So we plan to partner with like other organizations around like the San Francisco area who are battling plastic within their own community. And in doing so, even though like our experimental process seems like it's very difficult, we plan on putting back PET into the plastic bottles, so like the process becomes simpler. We can be able to provide better products, and and in doing so, improve like the earth globally, because that is one of our mission statements, is to make a huge impact in this world.
And yeah, that concludes everything we had to talk to you about today. So yeah, I really hope everyone here can take away some of the experiences that we have developed in the past, like what, two years of being a company. And again, like I think someone asked this earlier, but regardless of your background, like whether or not you're science background, politics background, economics background, what have you, like you are needed in every aspect of these types of efforts, because again, it's going to take everyone to actually make like a significant change in moving the needle on these issues. Yeah, we definitely need more people, not us particularly ReFuel, but like we like as a whole movement, like we all need more people to be collectively putting effort into this. Yeah, and that's all we had today. Thank you.
And then right below we'll drop our contact information if anybody wants to reach us out. Vivian or Justin will also provide their email in case anybody wants to reach out. Currently, even though we're all scientists, right now we're not being scientists. We're mostly like we're dealing with like grants, like so we're becoming like amazing writers, and like we're figuring out how to like market our own company when it comes to like LinkedIn and Twitter. We're trying to get more into the aspect that we don't know, which is not science, which is like, how do we get on social media? How do we talk to potential investors? How do like basically what it means to run a business. So even though we have like this big, huge science mind, there's goes so much more in the background.
Yeah, so I guess we transition to Q&A. Stop sharing.
Yes, thank you so much, ReFuel Technologies. Wow, thank you for sharing all that stuff. As you said, we will transition to Q&A. If anyone would like to ask any questions, please raise your hands or type them in the chat. And yeah.
Oh, I see raised hands. Sydney?
Yes, great presentation. Thank you so much. I was wondering if, since you guys are UCSC students prior, if you guys did any research on campus in a lab.
Yeah, actually, like some of our preliminary research was with Chad Saltikoff. So he's actually still one of our mentors. And we've had tons of support from professors at UCSC. But yeah, we've worked a little bit with Professor Chad Saltikoff in, I think he's in METOC's department. But yeah, we have.
Okay, thank you. I will send you an email with a follow-up.
Great, thanks. And then Sean.
Awesome presentation, you guys. The work you're doing is human in the battle. I was wondering, how you guys feel about maintaining corporate responsibilities for the plastics that they produce? Like in Europe, I think in Germany in particular, Coca-Cola is held liable for every single piece of plastic that they produce, and that encourages them to recollect all that plastic in a given month, everything they produce, because they get fined for the litter. How could that be incorporated into converting this all this unused plastic into fuel?
That's actually a great question. I think I've heard about something similar to that a while ago, but I don't know too much about it in detail. But that being said, I think that would be a great incentive for, like you said, companies like Coca-Cola to collect their waste, but also where people like us come in is that we could say, hey, like I know you have a lot of plastic waste, Coca-Cola or Nestle or whatever plastic company. We can use that waste, and we can take that waste, especially, if we're talking about, I'm not sure particularly where plastic companies are at in the local area, but if we're talking about giving back to our communities, we can say like, hey, like if we can target these plastic producing companies in the local area, we can take their waste and then produce valuable products for the communities like in our area, like whether it be energy or other products. And that would actually be like a really good way to plug ourselves in. It's actually a really good insight. Yeah, good question. Yeah, I agree, Robert. Yeah, back when they used glass, they switched away from that because they thought it was. I suppose they thought it was more costly. Oh, Samantha, you have a question, I see.
Yeah, first of all, I want to say thank you for the presentation. It was really interesting. But I mean, I just had a question just regarding like after graduation, like how did you guys come together and like how long did the process take to create this like this idea, because I know that you mentioned that you were in a lab, but just like how did that brainstorm come up?
Yeah, so like the brainstorming process happened when we were still undergrads at UCSC, and we were thinking like, hey, like what are some problems we can solve with the backgrounds that we have? And that's how we did a lot of research, right? We were looking up, oh, like what are people doing about this problem? What are people doing about this type of pollution? And we stumbled upon like the issue of plastic waste, and simultaneously we stumbled upon a way to break down the plastic into essentially upcycle it into new materials. So the thing about like plastic waste is, and plastic recycling now, not a lot of people, actually no one is trying to take plastic and turn it into a brand new like thing. Everyone's taking plastic and breaking it down to produce more plastic, which is cool in its own right because it's circular, right? But we have the only known way of taking plastic and turning it into something entirely different that has value. And we figured that out just doing our research, just literally Googling stuff, figuring out like what existed out there, what had patents while we were still undergrads. And, we were all friends. We all met via STEM diversity programs at UCSC. That's how we knew each other. And we've just been pushing ever since.
Thank you. I also have another quick question. So is the process more like a byproduct that you get like for the chemicals that you want to synthesize? Is it more of like a mechanism that happens and you can collect like the byproduct of it?
Yeah, so like the method that we're using, it's the main product, right? The main product is butanol, and then the side products that Luis and Vivian had mentioned earlier were things like ethanol, TPA, other chemicals. Those are also side products that can also be used, but the main product from our process is butanol. And there's a lot of I guess biochemistry type stuff that we can go into, but essentially it's a two-step process that uses two different types of organisms, and you go from PET plastic to a chemical intermediate, and that chemical intermediate gets turned into butanol, and it's a two-step process, and butanol is the main output. It's not really like a side product; it's the main output of the process.
Thank you.
Question. Stina, you said, can you turn plastic into carbon energy sources in the form of sugars and carbs?
Yeah, I always was wondering how, if it would ever be possible to have animals be able to break down that plastic and then use it. Like, I mean, I don't know, plastics are mostly hydrocarbon, right? Yeah. I don't know if there's a way to just add an oxygen in there, however it's needed to make it into a sugar.
You know what? There actually is a company that's doing just that. However, I don't think they're using plastic. It's a company called Circe, CIRCE. They're a startup company, and they're actually taking like greenhouse gas emissions and turning them into like carbs and like fats to be used in food. So like they're using it as a way to like add more variety, both like flavor wise and nutrition wise, to like non-meat based products. Is that related to what you're talking? Is that kind of what you're talking about?
That sounds really cool and really close. I know I'm sure there's lots of different ways this can branch out, but
yeah, I'm not sure of any way to turn plastics specifically into that, but I mean, you never know. There's definitely a possibility.
Well, I'll be looking into that. Thank you.
See, I got a question from Pablo and Sydney.
Yeah, I have a quick question. What's your guys' business model? Like as a startup, like how does your operation work? Do you guys have like partnership with like a recycling plant? Like do you guys have a facility where you guys have like you streamline your chemical process to break down the plastic bacteria? Like how does all that work? I'm just curious.
Yeah, great question. So our process is essentially partnering up with municipal plastic or municipal solid waste. So that's like your waste collection companies like Waste Management, Recology, Green Waste, and also cleanup organizations like Ocean Plastics Recovery Project. That's one of our main partners. And then also government sector that have programs for recycling or getting rid of plastic waste. So that's where our feedstock comes from, where we get the plastic from. And then our process itself, like it's been proven to work in separate components on the lab bench. So it takes a little bit more. It's going to take us a little bit more time to do some lab validation to actually scale our process, right? So like our process is not scaled yet. It's still like benchtop version, but it's proven to work. So once we're able to scale, that's where we're actually kind of like have a full process going, where we go from, say ocean plastics or recycled plastics to our synthetic biology reactor into chemicals. So it kind of would go in that frame, if that makes sense. And then Sydney, yes, do we get any waste products from our degradation? So the only waste products that would occur from our process would be any impurities that would arise like from the plastic that we are inputting. So if our plastic like has like other impurities that are not PET, for instance, or like paint or like things like that, then we would get like some breakdown products that would be filtered out of our bioreactor, and we can actually reuse that, and like we can actually filter that and reuse it, so it's like kind of like a circular system where we're not wasting reagents. But yeah, as far as we can tell, the only real impurities, or the only real waste products would come from impurities. Good question. So you have another question, Sydney? That actually, we don't have all the data on that. That's a really good question, but no, we don't have all the data on that quite yet. So I wouldn't be able to answer that accurately right now. Sean, you have another question?
Yeah, this one's a little bit random. About how much chemical energy do you have to put into your process in order to catalyze the reaction? Like, do you have to heat the bacteria? Are you fostering it with some kind of other catalyst? Like, kind of trying to measure what degrees of efficiency that conversion process has.
Yeah, another great question. So we do have to heat the bioreactor in order for like the bacteria to be at optimal conditions, but we don't have to add any chemicals. We don't have to add any other catalysts. All we have is media that the bacteria persist in, and then like a phase separator within the bioreactor, and the broken down or like processed PET pellets that are added to the bioreactor. So yeah, we wouldn't really have a lot of chemical additives needed. We wouldn't need any actually at all, aside from like what's needed to grow the bacteria and the other organisms. Does that answer your question? Good.
Yes, definitely. So you're talking some seriously incredible efficiency here.
Oh, yeah, I didn't say that we get 100% breakdown, because we don't get 100% breakdown of the PET at all. It's more closer like 50%. But yeah, we don't need to use chemicals, because we're using like our process, like we're using like just engineered bacteria, and we're not really needing to add any other chemicals to break down the plastic.
Yeah, and then like, back off Justin's like comment on that. It also depends like how pure the plastic is. Like a lot of the times, like some plastic bottled waters, or like other just like regular plastic bags, they have different like purities when like converting them into like the process that we need. So it really just depends on what type of plastic that we use in order for like our experimental process to work at 100% efficiency.
Yeah. See a lot more questions. Do the engineered bacteria self-produce? Yes, they do produce, but as far as the amount of cycles, we don't have the data on that yet. That's kind of similar to Cindy's question, which is a good question. And then what was some of the other ones? Let's see.
Yeah, the other one that Kylie had is like, I wonder how much plastic it takes to produce a certain amount of energy or fuel. We still don't have some like, y'all are asking some really good science questions that like we're still in the works of developing. So far, we were able to use some of these experimental labs at UC Santa Cruz. However, due to COVID restrictions, we haven't been able to be in the lab as of recent.
Yeah. Hope that answers your questions. Who's that? Having trouble keeping up with the comments. And then Diana, you guys, how do we get funding? So yeah, we get our funding primarily through grants. Not a rude question, a very valid question. We get our funding through grants. So like Luis mentioned before, a lot of our time and energy goes into writing grants, doing research on which grants to apply for. There's grants at like state level, government level. We've received grants from UCSC. So yeah, that's our primary source of funding as of now. And then once we reach, once we've achieved more metrics for our process that actually would answer a lot of the questions that you're asking, which are great questions, that's when we're actually going to move more toward VC funding. But right now we're sustaining ourselves off of grants, which we've done pretty well at. All right. Yeah, so right now, Sydney, we're a product-based company, but our long-term plan is to switch to a service-based company, and that's where we think we can serve the most.
I think we got someone raising their hand, Justin.
Oh, Robert, sorry.
Yeah, I'm good. When butanol is used as a fuel, like what sort of emissions does it release, and like how efficient is it compared to what like conventional?
Yeah, great
like
question.
Fossil fuels are.
Great question. Yeah, so butanol, I can send you some of the facts and figures that we have on this. So butanol, it's about 35% more efficient than your standard gasoline combustion. And that's at I believe it was at like a 24% blend. And EPA regulations allow for, I think, up to 16% blends of different types of alcohols into gasoline at the moment. But I mean, there's always room for, like, depending on what you're using it for, there's room for, like, I guess, wiggle room. But yeah, it's definitely well researched that butanol is much more efficient than standard gasoline, and also more efficient than ethanol.
Cool. Thanks for answering the question.
Yeah. No, we don't live together as a startup. That would be nice if we did, but that'll be cool, but no, we don't. All right.
Those were really great questions. I think we can wrap up. If anyone has like any more questions, one or two, we can do that. But if not, thank you. Thank you so much. We appreciate your time coming into our space and telling us all the wonderful works you're doing, making a change in the world, even though it's still a pandemic and you're still going through that, and all other works too that you're doing. So thank you. Thank you so much. Just hands for your team.
Thanks for having us. It's been a pleasure. It's been great talking to fellow UCSC people. Yeah, anytime y'all want to chat with us, feel free. We're chill people, easy to talk to.